Today, as part of the Unique Antique Challenge, which is a vintage tattoo inspired challenge hosted by the crafty Creech DIYs and Furniture Flips, as well as La Vintage Decor. The format of today's video is going to be a little bit different, so bear with me. Obviously, we're going to refinish a piece. I'm going to be taking part in the tattoo side of things. I'm also going to try to explain a little bit about pressed wood and veneer in mid-century furniture specifically, but it is very common and there's a lot of confusion and misconception about it, so I'm going to try to explain that a little bit. There's a lot to cover in this video, so please stick with me even though it's a little bit of a different format, and I hope you enjoy. I'm going to be working on this mid-century Danish teak credenza. Now this piece was actually in our living room as our TV stand for a while until I refinished a walnut dresser that I decided to use instead. It's not in terrible shape, but it does have some issues. Now this was sold to me as a solid wood piece. I knew from the ad that it wasn't solid wood, but I waited until I picked it up to actually tell the guy that, and he was quite surprised. These mid-century pieces always get confused for solid wood, and they get passed down from family member to family member until eventually someone sets them straight. And I will try to explain how you can tell the difference. My name is Angie and I refinish furniture. Sometimes I paint and sometimes I don't, but I always do what I can to save old pieces from the trash. Welcome to my workroom. This piece has solid teak legs, and the two back ones are fine, but the ones in the front both have the same problem in that the threaded insert has sort of fused itself to the bolt. You can see there's a bit of epoxy gunk on the top there. That's a fairly common issue with this type of threaded insert, so those are going to be a bugger to get off, I already know it. This piece was actually made in Denmark. It is a fairly high quality piece. There's a divider in the middle with two shelves. These are the shelves. There is teak veneer on one side, and if you flip it around, there is mahogany veneer, which was very, very common in this style of furniture. Now this is what always freaks people out. This is pressed wood. It is extremely common in mid-century furniture, way more than most people think. Every time I do a video restoring a piece of mid-century furniture that is pressed wood, I get comments like, oh, that is crap, why are you doing that? Why bother? Throw it in the burn pile. And it's honestly just a case of not really understanding what mid-century furniture is and why it is the way it is. And not only mid-century furniture, a huge portion of today's furniture is also pressed wood core with wood veneer on top. I'm actually thinking about doing a video where I walk around some furniture stores and kind of point that out. So if that's something you might be interested in, make sure to leave a comment and let me know. You can actually see the veneer here on the drawer on the top and on the front face, as well as the inside. These are the sliding doors. Again, we have pressed wood with veneer. We've got teak on the outside and inset solid teak handles. These little plastic sliders are what fits in the grooves and helps it slide back and forth. A real common problem with these pieces is those plastic pieces will fall out or get broken over the years, and they're hard to replace. And on the flip side, again, just like the shelves, we have mahogany veneer. And actually the entire inside of the cabinet is mahogany veneer. So the question is, how can you tell that this is not a solid wood piece? I mean, looking at it, you've got wood grain on pretty much every visible surface. And to someone who's not used to looking at wood or knows much about wood, it might not even immediately stand out that these are all different types of wood. We've got teak veneer, we've got mahogany veneer. This is a piece, I believe, of ash with a small piece of teak veneer along the front. The piece on the back is actually pine, which is super weird. Even the back of the piece is mahogany veneer. And you don't see any chipboard or particle board when you look at the back of a piece like you often do with the dressers. So how can you tell? If it has sliding doors, look up underneath the top. You can see these channels where the top of the doors slide through. You can actually see the pressed wood in there. These pieces just cause a lot of confusion for people. These are all beautiful pieces that I've done recently, and every single one of them is veneer over at least some pressed wood. Most of these pieces have solid wood legs, solid wood frames, and even solid wood components like trim, but they're still pressed wood. It doesn't make them junk, and it definitely doesn't make them not valuable. I hope that clears up some of the confusion. I'll link another video of mine down below that talks about solid wood versus veneer versus laminate. Like I mentioned, this is a vintage tattoo challenge. I obviously do not want to paint this piece. This is worth probably about $1,200 to $1,500 once it's refinished. I will not be putting paint on it. I'm actually going to be making a second set of doors and painting those. I know you're anxious to get into this, and we will as soon as I have a quick word about today's sponsor. The majority of you only know me from YouTube, but I didn't always look the way I do now. I was extremely athletic when I was younger, but when I started tattooing, I went from an active lifestyle to a very sedentary one, and as I hit my 30s, things kind of went downhill health-wise for me. And this is me today, 43. Having come from such an active background and doing what I do for a living now with furniture, it is very clear that I need to take better care of myself. And one of the ways I'm doing that is by joining Care Of. And Care Of is a subscription service that ships you high quality, personalized vitamins, supplements, and powders right to your door every month. It can be super overwhelming to go to the store and look at all of the different vitamins available. And how do you even know what you need? Well, they make it super easy by providing you a 5-minute quiz. Taking the online quiz is so easy, even Nacho could do it. That asks you some questions about your health, your diet, your lifestyle, your goals, and figures out exactly what you need. I've been with Care Of since December and was so impressed by the products and the whole service that Andrea ended up joining as well. I love so much that the personalized packs are compostable and that Care Of will evolve and grow with you as your needs change. You can retake the quiz at any time and change up your products. Being able to bring these little packets with me has been super helpful for both me and Andrea. Take Care Of's quiz and see what vitamins and supplements they recommend for you. Then just click on the link below and use my code to save 50% off your first order. Andrea really likes the vanilla protein powder, I like the chocolate, and I'm glad to finally be addressing some of the deficiencies in my diet like vitamin B12 and also taking probiotics. These Danish pieces have different types of finishes applied. Sometimes it's a Danish oil, sometimes it's conversion varnish or some sort of lacquer. This one is definitely not conversion varnish, it's very thin. So I'm just going to clean the piece well and then sand off the old finish. Now I don't normally recommend doing this on veneer, but I already know that this finish is extremely thin and I am going to be sanding with a fairly fine grit. Once I get going here, you can actually see how easily this is going. Don't forget protection for the ears and lungs. I'm going to be applying Odie's oil to this piece, which I know will be controversial for some. There is a bit of a misconception about Odie's oil as well and what it is. I've had people yelling at me saying that if I use it in drawers it's going to stain clothes or that you have to put some other top coat over it. That's not the case. Odie's oil is actually a hard wax oil finish, and what that means is it will dry and cure to a nice durable finish. I've used it on other teak pieces in our house, including our coffee table, which basically doubles as our dining room table for pretty much every meal of the year other than Christmas and maybe Thanksgiving. It takes a lot of wear and tear, and the finish has held up really, really well. Odie's is tung oil based, and I even will get people that will comment on videos where I'm using Odie's saying that I should be using tung oil. Well, it is tung oil. I've seen a few comments as well where people compare Odie's oil to something like Howard Restore Finish, which is a product that I know a lot of people love. I don't like it for the simple fact that it's a temporary fix. How they ended up grouping Odie's oil with that, I'm not sure, but it is not at all the same type of product. This doesn't need a top coat, it is the top coat. I'm going to let the Odie's sit on this for probably about an hour and a half to 2 hours and move on to sanding down the other pieces and then applying the Odie's to that as well. One thing that I've never really understood, and if anybody out there watching is a manufacturer of these pieces, why they don't finish the underside of things. I've heard that it is simply cost, but it bothers me so much when the underside of shelves and the inside of pieces are not initially sealed or oiled. So I always make a habit of doing it. It just seems proper to me, I don't know. Okay, so moving on to the legs now. Obviously I'm going to be sanding these down and oiling them, but I have to deal with these two that have threaded inserts stuck on them. Usually it's just a matter of grip, so I just used this used glove and some pliers and it came right off of one of them, but I knew the other one was going to be more difficult. It had so much epoxy built up at the end, I knew it was going to be difficult. And it moved a little bit with the glove, but I just wasn't getting the grip that I needed, so I moved on to a couple of other methods that have worked for me in the past. One is using Gorilla Tape, and again, much like the glove, I got a little bit more traction, but it just wouldn't go all the way. So I moved on to another method, which is to use an elastic band, and this was the only size I had. It was worth a shot. Elastic bands are great for removing tight jar lids as well. So again, I got a little bit of movement, but it just wasn't going. So I decided to use some WD-40 and just try to get as much down through the threads as I could. And this entire process took probably in total about 15 minutes, but I did eventually get it off. Even though my Surf Prep sander has foam pads that make sanding things like legs and curved areas easy, the finish was so thin on these that I just decided to hand sand the legs. This buffing process is extremely important when you're using Odie's oil. Most of the time, if someone doesn't have a good result with Odie's, it's because of this process. They either put too much on and the excess oil is too hard to take off, or they just don't do it long enough. You have to remove all of the excess product from the wood surface. If you run your fingers over it and it still feels oily, you didn't remove enough. You can see here too what a difference it makes. These are both the undersides. There's just no comparison. I don't know why they don't seal them. I just can't get over it. Now this part is kind of important because it's a question I get asked all the time about why I don't like certain furniture polishes that begin with the letter P. This piece was a little bit dusty because it's been sitting out in the garage for a couple of months. What you're looking at here was me applying some degreaser and the finish immediately going sticky and thick. I guess technically I should say it's not actually the finish, it's a huge buildup of furniture polishes and waxes, etc. that had been used in the past. And looking at this now, it's disgusting to me. But a lot of times when you're using products like that, you don't even really notice it build up this way. And it's why I don't really care for paint products that advertise that you don't need to prep first. Because if I had tried to put paint over this without cleaning and without sanding, it would have resisted the paint and there would be parts that just wouldn't stick and the paint would peel off. And I see questions about this all the time on my Instagram and in my YouTube comments about people using paint and it not sticking and they don't understand why it happened. And a lot of times it's because of this product buildup. But you can see how sticky it was. It actually, you could form it into a ball. So I just used my scraper to remove all that gross buildup. It's not finish that I'm scraping. The finish, like I said, is very thin and it almost seems like a Danish oil because it's partly absorbed into the wood grain. And that buildup was literally only on the top. I didn't have that problem anywhere else on the piece. So that is exactly what caused that. And it's exactly why I don't like Pledge. I always like to make sure to clean out these tracks where the doors slide. You get a lot of buildup over the years, especially at the edges where the doors come to close. And of course I opted to use the Odie's inside as well. It looks so much better, it smells great, and the wood is sealed. Finally, it is time to do the top. The finish is so much brighter and clearer now. It was so dark and dingy almost. It was almost semi-opaque before, and here you can actually see some of the natural chatoyance and little areas of figure in a wood that is typically very straight grained. It's definitely one of the main reasons I like Odie's oil. It doesn't obscure any of that. I needed to put the threaded inserts back into the piece so I could add the front legs again. And to do this, I'm going to use epoxy, which is what they would have used initially. The difference is, instead of pushing all the epoxy in the hole and shoving the insert in and just leaving it, once I have the threaded insert in, I'm actually going to scoop out as much of the epoxy as I can that has settled inside the insert, so that when I screw the leg in, it doesn't epoxy that leg in as well, which is exactly what happened the last time. So here is where my tattoo inspired portion comes from. I obviously don't want to alter the original piece in any way, but I want to do something kind of fun and kind of show you how you can think outside of the box if you want to update a piece without actually damaging the integrity of it. I could have used plywood for this, and probably should have, but I was trying to keep costs down for this. I'm going to be recreating 2 door panels, and I'm going to be putting my design on those. So in theory, you could use whichever set of doors you wanted to in this piece, but I won't be selling these painted panels with the piece. I think I'll actually keep them and put them up in my shop. I need to recreate that ridge that fits up inside the piece and allows it to slide, so I'm going to be using my table saw for that. Always make sure that your table saw is unplugged when you're doing any kind of adjustments with the blade. Here I'm just setting the exact depth that I need. All I'm going to do is make multiple passes to section that out. And once I have them both cut, I'm going to grab some bin shellac-based primer and a respirator because this stuff is stinky, and I'm going to prime these panels. You can also use the bin that comes in a can and roll it on. I didn't have any at the time, I just had the spray, so that's what I used. I did this initial coat on both pieces, then came back a little while later and sanded it smooth, did another coat of bin, and then sanded that smooth. Now that I have a good base, it's time to deal with my design. Now, I sketched up my rough draft on the iPad. I'm really new to this. This is the first time I've ever drawn anything on my iPad like this. And again, this is just a sketch. What I want is for the design to go from one panel to the next. So on the right hand panel, I have this girl's face with some flowers and she'll be reaching out her arm. And on the left hand panel, her arm will continue and she will have a hand there holding a bird and some flowers. Very tattooy, very my style of tattooing. Now, I've made reference a few times in my videos to people that like to chime in about my tattoos and the fact that I have tattoos and that they don't necessarily agree with that. And it is absolutely no offense to me if someone doesn't like tattoos, or mine specifically. What is not okay is some of the hateful comments that I've received about them. And that is actually part of why this tattoo challenge came to be. The fact that a lot of us with tattoos have to deal with this from people we don't know. This dear soul actually came back 3 times to complain about my arms. Guys, it's okay if you don't like tattoos, but comments about my appearance, my family, or my pets, those are no-goes for me, so let's cool it with these kind of comments, okay? So I was on track to have these 2 panels done for this video, but as life tends to do, it decided to throw a wrench at me, and this is as far as I got with these paintings. And this is what happened. So I should be painting right now. It's okay. But I have a sick bunny. This is Flanders. He's been with us for several years. And he has a tummy ache. And with bunnies, tummy aches are very serious. They can get really cold and go into shock, so you have to keep them warm. That's what I'm doing. He's had medicine, but he is not feeling very good. And I know this has nothing to do with furniture, but I need to explain why I didn't complete this challenge. Rabbits need to eat pretty much constantly or their systems will literally shut down, and it is life-threatening. Keeping them warm, giving them lots of fluids. Often we need to feed them something called critical care, which is fed with a syringe, just to get something in their system. Belly rubs to help move things along. Recovery from GI stasis can take a long time and be a bit of a roller coaster. It was about 14 hours up to this point here where he started to eat a little bit on his own. We're not out of the woods yet, and I'm actually staying up late. It is currently 2:30 in the morning as I'm editing this. He's in the next room so I can keep an eye on him, but to get this video out on time, I have to release it without these panels finished. Here you can see kind of what I was going for, and I promise I will finish painting these at some point and show you. But unfortunately for this video, it just didn't work out time-wise for me to get these done. I really want to thank Crystal and Lavon for hosting this challenge. I will put links down below to their channels as well as the link to the playlist for this because there are definitely going to be some cool videos. I feel a bit like I let them down because I wasn't able to complete the mission, but some good did come from this. I get to refinish this teak piece and I'm well underway on 2 very cool paintings that I will finish, I promise. You can't always predict or plan for the way things are going to go, and this is a perfect example of that. Thank you for your patience during this somewhat scattered video, and I will see you next time.